Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us. I want to start and just give you a quick little background about myself and David Noyes, my co-presenter. I'm one of the co-founders of Language Tree Online. We've been around a very long time, since 2003. We've always been very focused on language learning. We've launched a lot of foreign language learning lines. But specifically today, and for the past 4 or 5 years, we've been very much focused on English language development, really helping our English learners in the secondary grades because we feel like those are the ones that need it the most. They have a very, short ramp, as we all know. And also presenting with me is David Noyes. A little background about David. He's overall English learners K-12 for Long Beach Unified School District. They're one of our largest districts here in California. And he also has his national boards in English language development. So our plan today is we're going to walk you through, I'm going to turn over to David here in a minute, but we're going to walk you through a short presentation. We want to kind of give you a little background and schema around our English language development level 1 that's really geared towards our newcomers and our beginning English learners. We'll also have a couple slides just to kind of give you a purview of what the level 2 is like for our intermediate English learners and our long-term English learners. And then once we finish going through the presentation, we'll walk you through a demo so you can see the content firsthand. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David and he can give you a little more background.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having us. I wanted to talk just a little bit about the inspiration around our ELD level 1, and it's mostly just out of lack of resources. So doing some studies around our middle and high school beginning English learners or newcomers, one of the things that we found was there's been an influx of newcomers and emerging English learners over the last couple of years into our middle and high schools. And unfortunately, as we started to kind of look for resources to accommodate to support them in their language acquisition, we found that there were very few that really addressed the needs of the newcomer. Additionally, we found that around the acculturation, we have students coming from all over the United States or all over the world into the United States, and their acculturation process has been limited, and and then to add the middle and high school level around the acculturation there, it was very difficult for them. So one of the things we wanted to do in our product was to try and provide support around that acculturation process. Another gap that we found in middle and high school was addressing the foundational literacy skills for these students. We found that very few of these students received the actual explicit instruction needed in order for them to acquire those foundational literacy skills. And then lastly, we also found that there was some summative data where students were taking assessments at the end of the year, but there was very few formative data, very little formative data for our students. So that was one of our big charges in creating a product that had opportunities for the teacher to do some formative assessment and finding that data. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to spend a minute here and just tell you a little bit about the entry and exit assessments. So what we did, and you'll hear me refer to them as buckets, but we basically put the assessments, we broke it out into 3 areas or buckets: foundational literacy skills, collaborative listening and speaking, language function and construction. So in each one of these key areas or buckets, there is a total of 25 questions. And one of the unique things that we did is we only put 1 ELD standard per question, but we have more than 1 question with that standard in it. The reason for doing that is we really wanted to help educators really understand down to the skill level where each English learner needs support. So it differs from, our state standardized tests, which oftentimes embed multiple standards into one assessment question. At the end of the day, those state standardized tests can be helpful, obviously, for redesignation, but oftentimes it doesn't really help us understand where our students need more support. So the standards-based entry assessment and the exit assessment, they're very similar. The questions are not exactly the same, but given the name, the entry assessment they take at the beginning, and then after they go through all the curriculum and take advantage of the downloadables, which we'll talk about more, then the exit assessment is really our way of gauging growth for each English learner student. So that assessment, went one too many, corresponds in lockstep with the lesson modules. So those same 3 bucket areas: foundational literacy skills, collaborative listening and speaking, language function and construction. We have a very uniform teaching format in the sense that the virtual professor comes on, he provides the lesson input and the information to the students. And then from there, the students go through and work on their activities online, and that's self-paced. And then for each online lesson, we also have an equivalent downloadable, and that's for you, the educators, to use. And they really just help reinforce the online lessons, but it allows you to have a formative assessment yourself. And in today's, distance learning environment, originally those were designed to be used in like a small group setting in the classroom, but they can be used in a synchronous setting online, which many of our districts are doing today. And then you'll see on the right-hand side here, for like foundational literacy skills, these are all the lessons in that bucket: collaborative listening and speaking. There's 12 lessons, and language function and construction. And then the last module, just briefly talk about, is our American school culture. And this is really outside of this English language development standards. It's really designed for our newcomers to help them, as David was mentioning, really help them acculturate and be comfortable in their new school environment, as well as help them gain functional vocabulary. So with school culture, what we did is we broke it down into 6 chapters. These are the chapters. And for this, it's a little bit unique in the sense that students can either pick English or Spanish for the video content, and that's the lesson input. And then they have their interactive exercises, which are very simplistic because, again, they're for newcomers. So yes, no type basic questions. And then for each online chapter, there's also a downloadable similar to the online lessons. And I think it'll make more sense, once we get into the demo and I can show you what everything looks like firsthand. Now I'll turn it back over to David and he can talk to you a little bit about the level 2.
Our level 2 program it's obviously beyond our level 1. So level 1 was created for our newcomers and our beginning language learners. Our level 2 program was created for our students that are at that intermediate level, as well as our long-term English learners. And what we did with our ELD level 2, and there's a few shifts. The way that you navigate the platform is the same, but the rigor goes way up for our level 2 English learners or language learners. One of those shifts is around the foundational literacy skills. We have advanced foundational literacy skills, where we're teaching those students spelling patterns, digraphs, advanced vowel combinations, things that we were exposed to in the elementary school venue, but many of our students never received any of that explicit instruction. And this is truly a game changer for our students once they acquire a general understanding of how language is put together. We've had a lot of growth when students are able to apply some of those systematic rules in English. Go ahead and move to the next page. Additionally, we also, for our level 2, we have multidiscipline integration. So, for example, in level 1, we developed schema around the middle and high school environment. So a lot of the scenarios that were embedded into the language standards, they're now in level 2, they're now content-based. So we are using some of the new generation science standards, some integration the cross-cutting standards there. Also science, social studies, as well as some other particular kind of global areas that students will have some growth in. And on that next page, yeah. So just very quickly, just kind of pointing out some of the subtle shifts between ELD level 1 and level 2. I kind of talked to you about the levels themselves, beginning versus our intermediate and our long-term English learners. There's a high in ELD level 1, it's highly scaffolded activities. So they have audio access so they can hear it, they can see it. And ELD level 2, it's standards-based content integration. The online interactive activities exist in both levels.
I think David might have cut out there. Sometimes they have internet connectivity issues at his district or here lately. I'll give him a minute.
ELD level 1, we have the appropriate passage. They can also record themselves actually reading the passage. And then the downloadables exist in ELD level 1 and ELD level 2. We were able to pivot a little bit, and their practice, actually practice activities for the students that they can do online, and the teacher can look at their progress as they turn those assignments in.
Great, thank you, David. So that's kind of our brief overview, but I'm going to switch gears here. Give me 1 second. And I want to, my computer doesn't want to cooperate here. There we go. And I just want to take you in and show you the content. So I'm going to log in, and this is a demo site, but exactly what you would see. The thing that's kind of nice too to point out is that when you log in as a teacher, you see the exact same thing that your students see. The only difference is as a teacher, you have access to the downloadables as well as the reporting. So I'm just going to kind of walk through it similar to how we went through the presentation. So let's first just start off with the entry assessment. And you'll see those 3 buckets that, we talked about. There's 25 questions in foundational literacy, 25 in collaborative listening and speaking, and 25 in language function and construction. So by no means we didn't intend for students to sit down and do a 75 question assessment. That would be really tiresome. But the nice thing is, being online, you can start with foundational literacy, and wherever they drop off, maybe question 12, when they log in, they'll resume right where they left off. So I'm just going to show you a couple of assessment questions in the language, function, and construction bucket, because I'd like to show you then how it corresponds with the lesson modules. So let's listen to a couple questions.
Look at the picture and listen to this sentence. Angela went to the library to check out a book. Which word below can be used to replace the name Angela? She, he, it, they.
So you can see it's, highly scaffolded with the image and the audio and the text. Here's another question on knowledge of pronouns.
Look at the picture and listen to the sentence. John likes to eat ice cream after school. Which word below can be used to replace the name John? She, he.
So I think you get the gist. There's actually another question in this assessment bucket on pronouns as well. So now I'm going to go back to the home, and we were just in this entry assessment area. So now I'm going to click on the lesson modules. And, as we said, the lesson modules are those same 3 buckets. I'll just click on each one so you can kind of get a quick purview. But so foundational literacy skills, these are all the lessons, and each lesson covers a standard that are in there. The way the system is set up is a student, like let's say they start in foundational literacy skills lesson 1, they would have to get 80% or higher to move on to lesson 2. If they get below that, then the system will prompt them to retake lesson 1. And let me go back up here and we can take a quick look at the collaborative and listening and speaking bucket. And you can see all the lesson topics that are covered in this area. There's a total of 12 online lessons in collaborative listening and speaking. And then I will go back, and we were in the assessment bucket of language function and construction. And as you know, I showed you a couple questions around pronouns. So now let's look at a lesson on pronouns so you can kind of see how they correlate. And just to make your screen bigger, I can always hit the X here and get a larger video screen.
In this lesson, we will learn about personal pronouns and how they are used in reading and writing. Let's review. A personal pronoun can refer to a person, place, thing, or idea. Here's an example. The boy walks to school. He walks to school. The pronoun he is used to rename the noun boy. Here's another example. The dish is in the sink. It is in the sink. The pronoun it refers to the dish in the sink. One more rule about personal pronouns. They can be masculine, feminine, or neither. When the noun refers to a place, thing, or idea, we use it. The pronoun it is neither masculine nor feminine.
So that gives you, a good idea of how the lesson input is given. That was, the virtual professor, which by the way is David, if you didn't already know that. And then you can see here we have a traditional T chart with the noun and the applicable pronoun on the right, and then their instructions.
Look at the pictures below. Choose the correct pronoun.
So then, based on the image, they'll select the appropriate pronoun. And then we go into more lesson input. We'll watch a little bit more here.
Now let's learn a few more pronouns. They are I, we, and they. The pronoun I is used when you are referring to yourself. For example, I like to read. The next two pronouns are plural as they refer to more than one person. The pronoun we is used when you are referring to yourself and others. For example, we walk to school. The pronoun they is used when you are referring to a group or more than one, but you are not in that group. For example, they are dancing.
Okay, excuse me. Then it goes back into the student exercises. You can see here another T chart with the noun and applicable pronoun and their instructions. This is a longer lesson, so I think for the sake of time, I'm going to go back to the home so I can show you a few more things. Pull up my menu. So a couple things in the entry assessment area that I wanted to show you. So when you click on the entry assessment, you heard us talk about the formative assessment by way of the downloadables. So if you scroll to the bottom of the entry assessment, you'll see here it's hidden from the students, but you can select any one of these three buckets. I'll select language, function, and construction. And you'll be able to see the downloadable for each online lesson. So let's click on pronouns since we saw a little bit of that online lesson. And this, some of the downloadables are very long, and they have, they start with, with the teaching routine, and it's highly scaffolded. So it will start off, and David, feel free to, jump in if you have more to add, but I was just gonna say, it has the picture cards and everything there, but it has, the girl and then the applicable pronoun. but it keeps going until, we get into writing. So, like I said, it's very scaffolded, but as we go down, you'll see where they will have a word bank, and they can use these pronouns based on the image, work on writing a sentence. I don't know, David, if you wanted to add a little bit about how a lot of this is being used now that we're in, many schools are in a distance learning environment.
Sure. The downloadables were actually as a result of really effective feedback we got from teachers using the program, and they wanted to see more application into to writing, as well as more productive language opportunities. One of the things that we wanted to stay away from is the student just going into the online platform and not actually practicing the language. So the way that the instructional routines are built here is for students to collaborate.
Shoot, David, you're cutting out. We can't hear you.
Collaborate, talk about what they're seeing, as well as providing that for our teachers who are using Google Classroom. So because of the structure, the scaffolding of the lessons, teachers are able to cut and paste this into a Google Classroom or Google slide deck in order to provide some specific instruction when they're doing their live learning.
Great, thanks, David. Okay, let me go back into the program. So I'll go back home. The other thing I wanted to point out in the entry assessment, let's say, students have taken the 3 bucket areas of the assessment, and teachers have access to the reporting, of course, and under grades, this allows you to, look at your students and how they did. So, this is a demo account, but, we have some data in here. So in the Grader Report tab, for example, if you look at language student number 4, these are the 3 assessment areas: foundational literacy, collaborative listening and speaking, language function and construction. And you can see how this student did in each area. If you wanted to drill down, let's say with collaborative listening and speaking, you see this little magnifying glass. You can click on that, and it actually tells you the questions that they missed, and you can scroll down and see those, see those question types. So like this student missed question number 3, and then you can see what that question was all about. The other tab, let me go back one, allows you to just pull up a particular student. So as the teacher, all your students would be in this drop down, and you could select whichever student, and then it gives you, a quick overview of what they did in each assessment area. I'm going to go back to home here. The other thing that we talked about briefly in the PowerPoint is the American school culture. So again, this is really designed for our newcomers and really to help them acculturate. We put it into 6 chapters. I'll just scroll here, but Chapter 1 is all about the school day and school rules. And for this, they can either select English or Spanish for the video. Then there's the interactive exercises. And then we also added a vocabulary builder, which is, scaffolded vocabulary. It also has video input and exercises in there as well. Chapter 2 is about class participation. Chapter 3, school resources, where to go to get help. Chapter 4 is all about morning break and lunch. Chapter 5 is our holidays and traditions. And then lastly, extracurricular activities that are offered in American schools. And then for the downloadables, they reside at the bottom here. You can see hidden from the students. And again, for each online chapter, there's a downloadable. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you one briefly so that you can see what it's like firsthand. I'll just go to chapter 1 here.
Hi, I'm Mike, and these are my friends Jessica, Jake, Layla, and Diego. We know you're new to school in America, so we'd like to take this time to show you around and explain a few things.
Unless your school requires that you wear a uniform, you can wear what you like. But there is a school dress code.
And here are some examples. Shorts, skirts, and dresses must be long enough to reach the end of your fingertips. Avoid wearing any see-through clothing that exposes your undergarments. No tank tops or spaghetti straps. Shirts must have sleeves that go past the shoulders. No bare midriff. No hats or dark glasses in the classroom.
Let's start with what you would do before school begins. During this time, you can catch up with friends and get ready for your first class.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing.
Are you guys gonna go to the dance this Friday?
Yeah, I think so.
Me too.
Sounds good. Many students put their books and lunch in their lockers and get just what is needed for classes that start before the first break. You'll get a chance to go to your locker again during the breaks to put back books you no longer need and get books for your next classes. If you don't have a locker, make sure your belongings stay zipped up in your backpack. When you hear the first bell, it's time to go to the first period. Your schedule may be different from your friends, but everyone will have 6 periods of classes each day. At the start of each school day, it's customary to say the Pledge of Allegiance. You should stand up and put your hand over your heart as you recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, I'm just going to stop it there. It's a longer input video. But, you know, one thing to point out, too, about the American school culture is that we really tried our best to expose students to a lot of different things that may come up in the school environment. But we also recognize that some schools have lockers, some don't. Some schools say the Pledge of Allegiance, some do not. So, you know, that's something where you can kind of tailor to, you know, your school and how things are done there. But once they do or watch the video, then it goes to the interactive components. And like I mentioned, the questions are very straightforward.
Choose the picture of the shorts.
So they're just selecting an image or like a yes/no question.
Can a student wear shorts to school?
And then one last thing, and I want to open it up to questions, but I wanted to just give you an idea of what the vocabulary builder is like. So here's the vocabulary builder for chapter 1, or at least a piece of it.
Now let's talk about colors. Red, blue.
And then, you know, we really tried to mix up the interactive exercises to make them interesting.
Listen to the description of the object. Select the color used to describe the object. Red, apple. Orange, house.
So I'm going to just stop it there and open it up. And Christy, I don't know if any questions have come in.
I just have a few of them over here. Will this program last me throughout the school year?
I could go ahead and answer that. It's the program is used with fidelity, meaning the teachers are taking the opportunity to look at the data as the students progress through the lessons, as well as utilizing some of the downloadable resources. It lasts about a year. Depending on exactly where the student is at in their language acquisition level. But we've had most of our teachers are also using other resources in their classrooms, as well as the language tree. So it lasts about a year.
Okay, and then another question. Are students able to go back to the lesson on their own to review independently?
The answer to that is yes, absolutely. Many of our students, because of the nature of the program, we wanted it to be developmentally appropriate. We had a lot of students actually going doing some of the online work at night when they were home, and actually sharing it with their families as well. So although we do want the students to go back and review the lessons, what we don't want them to do is rush through the lessons, and that's why the 80% success rate is built into the system, where they have to get 80% on a particular lesson before they can move on. But yes, they are able to access the platform at home.
Okay, and that looks like the end of the questions. Oh wait, one just popped in. My students are all long-term ELs. Can you speak a little more about how your program might be utilized by a designated ELD teacher with long-term ELs?
Yellow.
Yes, I can talk a little bit about that. That's level 2 is designed specifically to meet the needs of the long-term English learner because of the nature of the gaps that they have. It might be in some of those advanced foundational skills. It might be through some of the collaborative listening and speaking, where they're looking at text structure. They're learning how to have conversational language versus academic language. So the rigor in the level 2 meets the needs of the long-term English learner. And they also, these students also have an entry level assessment to find out what gaps they have, as well as an exit assessment. So that those lessons are specifically designed for designated ELD instruction. I did want to add just one thing based on the feedback we've been getting from teachers. If students are long-term ELs, we do suggest that they actually start in level 1 because of the nature of some of the learning gaps with our distance learning and COVID. There are some gaps that they might have in level 1, and they might progress rather quickly through level 1, but that actually prepares them for level 2 because the rigor is so much higher.
Okay, thank you, David. That looks like it's the end of the questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, Christy. I just
Jennifer, your audio is just a little bit low.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah,
Let me turn it up here. Is that better?
a little bit.
Okay. I don't know why it's so low. I'll try to speak up. No, I just wanted to click back over to the closing slide and, to kind of go on with what David was saying there for the last question, is that if you did want to learn more about the level 2, as it relates to the long-term English learners and our intermediate English learners, feel free to reach out to Studica. You may know who your Studica representative is, or if you don't, you can just shoot them an email and they'll let you know who that is. They are our partner in education, but we're happy to give a more in-depth demo, and particularly on the ELD level 2, because it's very similar to level 1, but as David said, the rigor is raised substantially. So, but with that, I just want to say thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and have a great rest of your week.
Great, thank you so much, Jennifer and David, and thank you everyone for joining us. Please keep an eye out for our follow-up email, and if you can, please take a moment and take the survey. Thank you so much.